Well, good evening. It's a joy to be with you tonight. I appreciate the opportunity. It's been a little while since I've been up in your neck of the woods, but I appreciate you coming out and spending your Friday night with me. I am Daryl Mosley, and I'm not from around here. I grew up in the little town of Waverly, Tennessee, about an hour west of Nashville, and grew up singing in church there and dreaming of a music career and not having any idea whether that's what the Lord had in store. I just knew that's what I wanted. But I've been blessed now for a lot of years to be able to travel and tour and sing and record and play some wonderful places like the Grand Ole Opry and the Bluebird and places like that. But the one common experience, the one common thread through all of that has been songwriting. I've been a songwriter the whole time. So these days I do a lot of this, just me and a guitar and sharing some of the songs I've written over the years and the stories behind them. And so that's what I'm going to do tonight. Now, if you follow gospel music at all, some of these you may recognize. Some of these were hits on the radio. So if I run across one and you know the words and you want to sing along, that's fine. It doesn't bother your neighbor. It won't bother me. I assure you. But I do have some new songs, some songs you're not going to know. Please don't try to sing on those if you don't mind. I'm just kidding. You can sing on whatever you want. I just want to give God the glory and everything we do this evening. But I'll warn you ahead of time, I'm a lover of story songs. So you're going to get a good dose of story songs tonight. Daddy was a builder, a carpenter by trade. Our house was filled with furniture and things Daddy made. He hammered out a living, he measured out a life, taking care of his children and his wife. 6 days out of 7, he was up before the dawn, and soon you'd hear him working with his hand and his saw. He was just a simple country man, hard-working, kind and good, but he was at his best with his hands in wood. With his hands in wood, he gave it all he had, never turned it back when the times got bad. He was a living example, and we understood. I did not start out with the idea of being a songwriter. That came out later. I started out singing in church. People ask me sometimes, when did I first start singing? I don't know. Probably about 30 minutes after I started talking, I guess. My grandmother used to tell me that she could take me to town and stand me up on the hood of the car and I would sing for people. I don't remember doing that. I'll take her word for it. I do, though, remember the very day that I decided I was going to learn how to play guitar. There are some moments that are just frozen in your mind that this one was mine. I was 13 years old and decided I was going to learn to play guitar because of an Elvis movie. I don't remember which movie or really much about it. All I remember is this one scene where the girl in the movie was mad at him. He had messed up somehow, and she was mad, and she wasn't going to talk to him anymore. She didn't want to hear anything he had to say. And old Elvis picks up a guitar and sings one song and fixed everything. Well, I was only 13, but I was old enough to know that would be handy to know how to do. So I started learning to play guitar. Of course, it was much later in my life when I learned the sad truth that only works in Elvis movies. That does not work in life at all. But thankfully, it got me started playing. Well, where I live and have lived most of my life is about 5 miles from where Miss Loretta Lynn lived. I knew Miss Loretta very well and went to school with her kids, and she was always just wonderful to me, just kind and encouraging and supportive. I was just a teenager, with this dream of music, and she was just the biggest thing in the music industry. But when she was home, she would take time to sit and talk with me and encourage me. And she was the very first one to point me to songwriting. She'd say, "Darling, you got to learn how to write." She said, "A lot of folks can sing them, but the good ones can write them too." And so with her encouragement, I started trying to figure out how you do this. How do you write a song? And I've come to realize songwriting is really part gift and part craft. Now, I'm thankful that God blessed me with the gift, but He placed on me the responsibility of the craft. It's up to me to work at it, to be as good at it as I can be. And it has been a lifelong process, And of course, in the beginning, they weren't any good. And of course, also in the beginning, you don't realize how not any good they are. Till much later. I actually wrote a song and sang it in public one time. A song called "The Scenery Never Changes When You Plow Behind the Mule." Worst song ever written. But fortunately, a great songwriter in Nashville, Larry Shell, kind of took me under his wing. And one of the things Larry said, he said, "Daryl, just write about what you know. Write about the things that matter to you." And that's been the best advice, because that's what I've done my whole career, is I write about the little town I grew up in, and the little church I grew up in, and little towns and little churches like them all across America. These pictures you see behind me, these were taken in my little town, and it's just a precious place to me, and I love that mindset, and so a lot of my songs feed from that, and I've learned to kind of listen to find songs in conversations. I had a wonderful pastor a few years ago that said something in a sermon one Sunday, and as soon as I heard it, I thought, "Well, that ought to be a song." And finally got around to writing it and recording it. And as of last month, the month of October, this was the #1 gospel song in America. And it's just a simple little Bible truth, and I want to share it with you tonight. I talk with Jesus every morning, 'cause I know He's hearing what I say. I tell Him all about my troubles, and no matter what's ahead, I'm not afraid. And He's with me when I'm walking through the valley. He's with me when the future's growing dim. He's with me You know, when I was a kid, my dad, he didn't like to drive. And so we didn't take family vacations like other folks did. We didn't go to Florida, things like that. We would go camping, you know, which was fun and all, but it was always, you know, pretty close. So basically every experience that I had growing up happened in about a 40-mile radius of my hometown. And when you grow up like that, you grow up in this false sense of reality, believing that the way we do it is the way they do it everywhere. And then I got grown and I started touring and I'm all over the country, and I discovered, sometimes embarrassingly, sometimes probably dangerously, that the way we do it at home is not how they do it everywhere else. When I was in my early 20s, I was touring for the very first time in a band. There was 3 other guys in the band. They were all about my age. We were just green and never been anywhere, never done anything, and got lost one night in the middle of the night in East Chicago. Obviously you have been there. But we had not. Well, all we knew is we were lost, and we pulled into the parking lot of what used to be a market. It was boarded up, and we, of course, understand, young people, this is way back before GPS. We had GAS. Go ask somebody. That's all we had. We did have a Grand McNally road map, and we had the dome light on in this little van we were traveling in, trying to figure out where we were, and all of a sudden our van got surrounded by 20 or 25 young Chicago locals. Now, none of us had ever seen a gang before. It never crossed my mind that this could be a dangerous situation. I just did what I would have done at home. I rolled the window down and asked for directions. And this one guy, I don't know if he was the leader, but he was definitely the talker, and I think it surprised him more than anything else, and he wanted to know who we were and what we were doing, and I explained to him we're a band and we got lost. He had one fellow standing next to him that never said a word until all at once, and his eyes got big and he pointed in that van and he said, "What is that?" And I turned around and one of the guys in the band had taken a banjo out of the case. And I said, "Well, that's a banjo. He plays that. It's a musical instrument." God is my witness. Those 2 fellows looked at one another, and that main guy looked back in the van and he said, "Guys, y'all gotta get out of here. It's not safe for y'all around here." And what we was told later was one of the more notorious gangs in that part of the city gave us the best directions to get us out of that part. And I thought, I know that God was looking out for us, but I just think it is hilarious how he did it. Because I guarantee you, as soon as they saw that banjo, they knew there was no money in that van. Put us on the road, but it's funny now. We didn't know. What really makes me laugh though is when those situations happen in reverse, because they do. You know, there are people that didn't travel outside of their area, and all they know about country people is what they have learned from television. Television has not been good to country people, you know. And I got invited to sing one Sunday morning at a wonderful little church in Minnesota. Walked in, wonderful people, but at the front of the church, they had brought in every hay bale, wagon wheel, corn stalk, red checkered tablecloth. It looked like somebody had brought a Cracker Barrel. They just ran every bit of that stuff to the front of the church. The pastor was wearing brand new overalls. His wife had blacked her teeth out. And they did every bit of that to make me feel at home. Absolutely true. I mean, I wasn't offended. They were trying to be sweet. They didn't know any better, you know. I had shoes on and everything. They didn't know anything. Last November, I was doing a road through the New England area, and I'm at a big church in Bristol, Rhode Island on a Saturday night, and the pastor came up to me, and he was all nervous. And he wanted to tell you something. He had to tell me, he said, "We're having some plumbing issues. They were supposed to be fixed before you got here. They're not fixed." And long story short, we don't have any restroom facilities. He says, "All we've got are these 2 portables that I have pulled into the back parking lot." He said, "I sure hope you're not offended by that." I said, you know I'm from Tennessee, right? I mean, the little church, I grew up in a Methodist church, and you could have set that whole church down inside this sanctuary, the whole building. Well, all except the bathrooms. The bathrooms are about 40 yards that way, but because I didn't know. I mean, I grew up, I was nearly grown before we put plumbing in that church. I didn't know you put plumbing in churches. I thought they was like barns, nobody else had. We grew up in a church with no air conditioning, nothing like Sunday in the summertime with no air conditioning. We'd open up them windows and we'd get these little handheld fans that the funeral home used to give away. Do you remember that? Had like a picture of Jesus on one side, had a funeral home commercial on the back. Ours said, Humphreys County Funeral Home. We're the last ones to put you down. I'll never forget that. But it was a great little church. I gave my life to Christ in that little church. You know, I'm grateful for it. But because we didn't have a lot of people, a small church, we didn't have a lot of young people. So whenever we were going to have a vacation Bible school or a youth event, we would partner with our sister church. Blue Creek was the name of it, just down the road. And of course, my little church is still going strong, but Blue Creek is not fared as well. I drove by one time and it was right on the verge of falling down. The hunting club was meeting there, but that was about it. And now it's completely gone. And, you know, I don't know if it fell down, if they tore it down, but if you drove by there today and just see that little patch of ground, if you did not know there used to be a house of worship right there, you'd have no way of knowing it. And it just breaks my heart, you know, but I see that more and more these days in my travels. Little churches that used to be the backbone of the community that are now sitting empty or being used in some other way. And like I said, it makes me sad, and I can't help but believe it makes the Lord sad too. And because of that, I wrote this song. The windows are boarded, there's a lock on the doors. The pain is now peeling and chipping away. Down off the highway, it's just an eyesore. People drive by and just look away. But I still remember a time in the past, with cars in the driveway and freshly mowed grass. The church bell rang so that the neighbors could hear. Oh, I still remember a time when God lived here. On Sundays, my family and I would arrive. We'd sit on the fourth row on the piano side, sing about love, and we'd hear about grace and the joy of the Lord. Put a smile on my face. We'd leave at the altar our burdens and cares. And one of the brethren dismissed us in prayer. The pictures are vivid and coming so clear, 'cause I still remember a time when God lived here. Springtime baptism, homecoming day, a helping stranger that passed by our way. Vacation Bible school and pink lemonade. I wonder where everyone worships these days. 'Cause now it sits empty, vacant and sad. It marks like a tombstone of what we once had. A sweet southern town where God could reside, until we so carelessly pushed it aside. But oh, how I wish I could turn back the clock to when its foundation was still on the rock. As I drive away, I brush back the tears, 'cause I still remember a time when God lived here. The pictures are vivid and coming so clear. Oh, I still remember a time I realize change happens. You know, it happens in every community, and I guess I should adjust, but I don't handle it as well. And part of it is because, like I said, Waverly is about an hour west of Nashville, so it's not really convenient to live there and work in the city every day. Now, some people still do it, but it's not an easy commute. In fact, I think just last week, Forbes magazine said the commute to Nashville is the absolute worst commute in America. And I can vouch for that, you know. It used to be an hour from our house to East Nashville. Now it's an hour from West Nashville to East Nashville, you know. So it's just not. So a lot of people that live in our town live there like me. They grew up there and they have roots there and they can't really imagine living anywhere else. Or they move there because the pace is a lot slower. You know, we're still a few decades behind in lots of ways. It is not uncommon in my little town to see kids on their bicycles, unaccompanied, heading down the sidewalk towards the ice cream parlor we've got sitting there on the court square. Our little court square still has a one-screen movie theater, still operated by the same family that built it in 1936. I mean, they played The Wizard of Oz the first time it came out. Think about that, you know, make that kind of play. But we've lost a few things over the years, and one little place that I still miss every time I drive by where it used to be is a little grocery store we used to have called Hicks's Grocery. In fact, there used to be little grocery stores like this all over America. Back in the days before the big box stores, you'd be out on a little two-lane stretch of highway, and it seemed like it would just pop up out of nowhere. And they all looked relatively the same. Hicks's Grocery, Mr. Orville Hicks owned it, and it was a little block building. It had one gas pump in the front, and it had a screen door. And you could walk in that screen door and turn to the left, and he had a drink box with the Coca-Colas and the great knee-highs and stuff in the little glass bottles, but you'd have to slide it out of that thing and pop the top off of it. And, in the back of the store, I don't think they called it a deli. In fact, I don't even think I knew that word till I was grown. All I remember seeing was bologna on the roll about that long. And they'd slice off a hunk of bologna for bologna and crackers. And, you know, they had a pot-bellied stove in the back. And, you know, those little places like that, they all kind of look alike. But the one thing that I remember most about this, in fact, every kid in town remembered this. If you walked in Mr. Hicks' store and turned the other way, Mr. Hicks had the most loaded down candy counter of any store in town. And us kids, we just come in there and stare, you know. We'd start right at the top with the lifesavers and the juicy fruit and go right down through every candy bar you can think of. I mean, a lot of them they don't even make anymore. Candy bars and baseball cards and them little wax bottles with the juice inside. You remember them? And pixie sticks and candy cigarettes. Do you remember candy cigarettes? I was 2-pack a day on those things when I was a kid. I love those things. Mr. Hicks kept them for us. But I'll tell you, one day in particular, I was with my daddy and we were on the way home, and Daddy noticed that I had a piece of candy. He also knew that I did not have any money with me. Well, he took issue with that, and he turned his pickup truck around and he drove me back to Mr. Hicks' store. I made this little fellow walk in there by myself and confess. And boy, I didn't want to do it. I was ashamed. And I should have been. I mean, I was a little guy, but I was old enough to know better than that. But I did it, and to this day, I remember every detail of it. And it made an impression on me that I carry with me still. Actually, a couple things made an impression on me that day. But we won't talk about the second one. But a few years ago, I was doing some songwriting and a version of that story found its way into a song. Now, if you follow gospel music at all, you may have heard this one. This was actually a #1 song in gospel music a few years ago. But that's my confession behind it. And it goes like this. Two little boys were staring at the candy on display. One whispered to the other with the clerk looking away. Just put it in your pocket, no one will ever know. We'll need it all before we get back home. Well, that little boy just stared down at the candy on the shelf. You could almost hear the conversation he had with himself. Then he Back in the summer, I went down to Texas and did actually a reunion concert with the very first band that I ever toured with. The same band that got lost in Chicago that night. We did a reunion concert. First time we had been on stage together in 25 years. We had the best time, but man, I tell you, those guys got old. It's funny how it feels that way, isn't it? You know? You just get busy with your life and your work, and and another year's come and gone, and I love it. God has got a strange sense of humor sometimes, and He has little ways of reminding me that that's happened. You'll have these moments where like you're in line at the bank, and there's some old guy up there slowing up the works, and you're like, man, I wish this old guy would hurry up. And then he leaves, and you realize you graduated high school with him. But my favorite story, I was playing the Grand Ole Opry one night, and I was standing in the wings waiting to go on, and on stage is this young group, and I can't think of their name, but there were two girls and a guy. They were maybe 30 years old, and they're singing some big hit record that they had, and they sounded great, and I'm just standing here watching because I'm on next, and so when they finished, there's all this applause, and they're bringing them off stage, and Pete Fisher, who was the manager of the Opry at the time, is escorting one of these young ladies off stage, and she stops. And she points right in my direction, and she leans down to Pete, and she says, I would like to meet him. So I get to looking around trying to figure out who she's pointing at. I thought Vince Gill or somebody had walked up beside me, but no, I'm standing there by myself. So Pete brings her over, and I introduce myself. She says, oh, I know exactly who you are. I said, really? She's like, oh yeah, when I was like 3 years old, my grandmother used to make me go to your concerts. That was not the conversation I thought we were going to have. I laughed as she probably got back to the dressing room and calls her mom like, you remember that old guy Grandma used to like? I met him tonight. But I would say I appreciate that I was able to be raised up in the time that I was. Because the world has changed so much. My children, the way they communicate, the way they do everything is very different from our generation. And, I grew up in a world where you come home from school, you did your chores. We ate supper together as a family at the table. After supper, you did your homework, and if you had any time left, that time belonged to you. And when I had time left, oftentimes I would reach for a guitar. But if I had been raised up with options like cell phones and video games, maybe I would have reached for that. And it could have changed the path of my whole life. So I appreciate that. I find it funny now that we grew up with 3 channels, watched them all the time. Now we have 300, can't find anything on it. Entertainment was a little harder to come by back then. So I'll always appreciate when I was about 9 years old, I got one of the best presents I ever got. And my grandfather gave me this little plastic transistor radio. And it was awesome. Because I discovered very quickly that if I would wait till after dark when those clear channel AM stations were broadcasting, and if I would keep the volume down low enough that my mama didn't know I had it on, I could lay there sometimes late in the night rolling across that dial and listening. And I just, because of that radio, I discovered WLS out of Chicago, and I think it was KWKH out of Shreveport, and of course I was easily close enough to get WSM and the Grand Ole Opry, but I was also close enough to Memphis, and I could get some of those great Memphis stations, and so I would listen to shows like Red Hot and Blue, and then I just started discovering some other music out of Memphis. Folks like the Staple Singers, and the Fairfield Four, and Sister Rosetta Tharpe. Some of the greatest black gospel music ever recorded being played out of Memphis. Some of it was songs I'd never heard. Some of it was songs I was familiar with, but arrangements like I'd never heard. And it just opened up my world to music that maybe I would have never heard, or maybe heard much later in life. So I'll always appreciate that. My buddy Rick Lang and I wrote this song. He had a similar experience growing up. And this was the #1 song in the Bluegrass Acoustic World last year. And I think it just resonated with folks because there's so many of us that remember. But this was really our only window to the outside world. It fit right in my pocket. I took it everywhere. Just place it on the window. The reception's bed. I ran my thumb across till the station came clear. And I'd sing right along to the sounds that I would hear. Well, I couldn't see their faces, but I sure knew the tunes. I'd sing out loud and play pretend guitar on Mama's run. It drew me like a lighthouse with its tiny amber glow, the best friend of my childhood, my transistor radio. From the Opry down in Nashville to the Ozark Jubilee to the new sounds out of Motown, it all sounded good to me. Well, I sang along with Elvis and played the Bill Monroe on the stage in my bedroom, my transistor radio. All right, show of hands, who got a transistor radio? All over the house. Well, I learned to hear the harmony in church and Sunday school, but I practiced with Aretha when she belted Chain of Fool. And early in the morning, if I tuned it in just right, I could hear that banjo picking, making right along the line. Well, it's been so many years since those magic boyhood nights. Today I get my music beaming down from the satellite, but it never quite feels like it did in those days long ago, when I heard it for the first time on that little radio. From the Opry down in Nashville to the Ozark Jubilee to the new sounds out of Motown, it all sounded good to me. Well, I sang along with Elvis and played the Bill Monroe on the stage in my bedroom and my transistor radio. I sang along with Mavis, sang with all Monroe on the stage in my bedroom and my transistor radio. Oh, thank you so much. One of the great gifts that God has given us, and we overlook it because we just kind of take it for granted, and it doesn't get the credit that it's due. But one of the great gifts God gave us is the ability to recall. That at any given moment, you can choose to turn on those mental pictures and those mental videos and revisit people and places and experiences from your past that you no longer have access to. You know, we all tend to believe that we act and live independently, but things like love and loss and grief and change and disappointment and all those emotions find their way into everybody's life. And so the reason so many songs are written from those perspectives is because those are universal. And so as songwriters, we're always looking for those experiences that we can all kind of relate to. This is certainly one of those. When I was about 15, Mom and Daddy bought a farm. Daddy had always wanted a farm, and so they sold the little house we lived in town, and they bought this farm. But by that point in my life, I was already working after school and on the weekends, and of course then I turned 16 and I'm driving, so I'm home even less. And then I finished my schooling and I headed to Nashville to get involved in music, and so I never really got emotionally attached to the farm the way I did that little house in town. That little house in town will always be my home place. It'll always be where I grew up, and I used to go by it every now and then just to kind of reminisce. And I'd ride on the streets of the neighborhood, where I'd ride my bicycle and play with the neighborhood kids. But one of the last times I was there, I'm sitting still in this little road, and I'm looking at that little house on the hill, and all these memories are flooding in. And it took a minute to realize that there was a guy in the doorway staring back down at me. And he didn't look near as happy that I was there as I was. And I thought, well, no wonder. I mean, he don't know me, you know. He's looking at me like, who is this strange man staring at my house? And I probably look at him like, well, who is this strange man living in my house, you know? Because it didn't seem right. How can I possibly be a stranger here when I could still walk through that house blindfolded? And I thought, you know, that's one of those moments that most of us can relate to. Most of us are not living in the house we grew up in. Most of us have a house or a home, a place in your heart, in your past, that you hold precious, even if you no longer have access to it. You know, maybe it's where you grew up, or where your grandparents lived, or where you lived in another town before you moved here, but it's there, and it's powerful. And so that's where this song came from. This was a top 10 song a few years ago, but what I love about this song is that every time I sing it, what I see in my mind is that little white house on the hill there in Waverly, Tennessee. But I know when you hear it, it's going to take you someplace completely different. Of course, I have no way of knowing where it's going to take you, but wherever it is, I hope it takes you home. A little wood frame house on a quiet street, the centerpiece of all my childhood memories. I drive that way every now and then to remember where I came from and who I've been. I turn down that old familiar blacktop. I slow down, but I don't stop. The little house where I was raised surely sees its better days, and somehow looks much smaller than before. But Daddy's gone and Mama too. It's lived by somebody new. Strangers locked behind our own strange door. Well, I still go back, but I can't go home anymore. I wish I'd known way back then just how fast time gets here, then it's gone again. One day I'm there with my folks inside, the next I'm just a stranger slowly driving by. You might just see shingles, windows, walls, and doors all up to me, and so much more. The little house where I was raised surely seen its better days, and somehow looks much smaller than before. But Daddy's gone and Mama too is living by somebody new. Strangers locked behind our old screen door. Well, I still go back, but I can't go home anymore. The backyard where we talked so long, the Mama said supper's ready, come on, and we joined hands, and Daddy thanked the Lord. The bedroom where I dared to dream of places I had never seen, a great big world that called me to explore. And love me back full circle to this door. Well, I still go back, but I can't go home anymore. Yes, I still go back, but I can't go home anymore. You know, I want to say tonight, say it publicly, that I am grateful that God did not give me all the things that I wanted back when I thought I wanted. I appreciate now more than ever that not one time did He ever take my advice. Because, boy, howdy, I would have missed things. You know, when I was in my late 20s, for a few years, I was a staff songwriter for Ronnie Millsap's publishing company in Nashville. And every Monday morning, they would take us songwriters and they'd put us in a room, and we'd have to go round robin and sing whatever song we'd been working on. And they did this to kind of create some friendly rivalry and try to encourage us to write better songs. I remember those days I was right at work, and I'd hope and wish and even pray that God would help me write a big hit country song. And He never did. I actually had a couple things that were on hold, and I thought this was going to be the one, and it ended up not getting recorded for one reason or another. And for a long time, I didn't really understand why. It became much clearer later. It reminds me a lot of that story of Jesus at the wedding at Cana, when the wine ran out. And you know the story. The wine ran out, and so they sent Jesus' mom to go ask him to do something. That's how you know Jesus was a country boy, because they sent his mom. And so Jesus did what Jesus does, and of course you know the story. They took the wine to the host, and he tasted it, and he said, you know, most of these things, they bring out the good stuff first. But as the celebration kind of wanes, they bring out that lesser quality stuff. But not you. No, you saved the good wine for last. I've come to realize that that's oftentimes how He does us. When something doesn't work out like you think it should, when you're disappointed, when you're impatient, when it feels like He's not listening, you just have to remind yourself to wait, because the good wine's coming. You know, if He'd given me that big hit country song that I thought I wanted back in those days, it would have been on the radio for a little while, and I'd made some money, and then it would have been gone, disappeared, and never heard from again. But a few years after that, He gave me a song that has been around the world. This song won every award it could win. It made the list as one of the top gospel songs of all time. It's been streamed billions of times. I've heard it sung in different musical styles. I've heard it in different languages. Every now and then I get on the internet and just look for it. I mean, there is a black gospel version of this song. There is a very traditional mountain bluegrass version of this song. I have found this song sung by a praise and worship choir from Jamaica. I found it sung by a youth choir from South Africa. It's been sung in countries that I couldn't find on the globe. And I marvel at the stories. Still to this day, I rarely go out on the road and somebody doesn't share with me a story of how the song has found its way into their life. And they still happen all these years later. Just a couple months ago, I got an email from a guy who told me that he was going in for major surgery. And he had made arrangements with his surgeon and with the hospital to play this song on a loop during his surgery. And I thought, I hope that's a short surgery. Because you're going to be asleep, but that surgeon is going to know every word of this thing before it's over. No, I'm just overwhelmed by the places it goes. Mr. Bill Gaither told me one time, he said, you know, Daryl, one of these days that song is going to outlive you. And I never thought about that, but I know what he means. One of these days, if the good Lord tarries, I won't be here to sing it. But the song will still be here. And other folks still sing it. And God's still being glorified by it. Maybe youth choirs from South Africa still sing it. And it was just in that moment, I was just overwhelmed by the reality of it all. That the God of creation, the God of Abraham, knew me and loved me and sent a Savior to die for me. And they could still look beyond my faults and my weaknesses and allow me to be a part of something that was going to transcend time. I mean, how do you think of God like that? Well, friend, I want you to know that the God of creation, the God of Abraham, knows you and loves you and sent a Savior to die for you. And can look beyond your faults and your weaknesses and wants to bring good things into your life. He just needs you to trust Him. So friend, no matter how good or how bad it's been up to now, there's a better life coming. So I'm going to share the song with you. If you follow gospel music, it's probably crossed your path somewhere along the way over the years. The sounded like that very first night, the night the song was born. I was working in town one afternoon, attending some business affairs. I heard a commotion a couple streets over. I wondered what's happening there. A young man was running from in that direction. He's come just to catch his breath. Oh, I asked him to please tell me what was the hurry. Oh, he smiled up at me and he said, I was trying to catch the crippled man. Did he run past this way? He was rushing home to tell everyone what Jesus did today. And the mute man was telling myself and the deaf girl was leaving to answer God's call. Oh, it's hard to believe, but if you don't trust me, ask the blind man, he saw it all. Ask the blind man, he saw it all. Here's the good part right here. My friend, the troubles and burdens you carry your head and drag you down. You've tried everything you can possibly think of. There is no relief to be found. Friend, there is same Jesus that altered the future of the blind and the deaf and the lame. Oh, he is still reaching out in your hour of trouble. One touch and you'll never the same. You'll be trying to catch the crippled man. Did he run past this way? He was rushing home I appreciate you sticking around after the break. And I got a chance to visit with several of you. And I hope some of the rest of you will when we get finished. You know, I just appreciate that some of the songs are resonating with you. You know, it's funny, growing up like I did and not traveling until I got grown, and you know, places like Wisconsin seem like, you know, they might as well be the moon as far away as they were, you know. But I realized as I started traveling how so similar we are in so many ways, and you know, I realized I talk a little different. And, you know, we probably eat some things that y'all probably wouldn't eat, that sort of thing. Y'all might too, you know. So, but other than that, you know, we're culturally we're a little different, but that's about all. And so I just appreciate that the songs are resonating with you. I love talking to people, and especially, you know, people that, you know, I think God must really love ordinary people, because He sure made a bunch of us. And you know, I just love hearing stories from people that live, you know, they kind of live a life that's under the radar, but they live these really big, wonderful lives. And there's a gentleman back home that I used to love talking to. I don't get to see him as much anymore because he's retired. A gentleman back home everybody calls Toad. I don't even know Toad's real name. I'm pretty sure that's not what his mom called him. But Toad was our barber. Like I said, he retired last year, but he cut hair on the court square for 67 years. But Toad's, he's still just the best guy. You know, he's kind of a local historian and storyteller, and still teaching Sunday school. And Toad is one of the most happiest people I've ever known. And if you knew a little bit about Toad's life, you'd realize that there were times he didn't have reasons to be that happy, but he just is. And so one day in his barber chair, I asked him about that disposition of his, and that conversation turned into this song. He was a Humphreys County treasure. He knew everyone by name. He could stand and talk for hours on just almost anything. He'd been our local barber over 67 years, good at raising up your spirits while he's lowering your years. I never saw him in a bad mood or few pictures on my Facebook of me and Toad. If you follow Facebook, it's just Daryl Mosley, singer-songwriter, and you can find some on there. They're worth looking at just to see Toad. But, you know, I mentioned that Toad didn't always have reasons to be happy, and part of the reason is actually the basis of another song. In fact, I got the idea to write the song because of Toad. In addition to being a barber, for a while he was a part-time law enforcement officer in Waverly. You know, and not none of the high crime, you know, he wasn't busted up moonshine steals or anything, but he'd give a ticket once in a while. But back when I was a kid, we had a major disaster in our little community. I mean, when Walter Cronkite leads his news story that night with it, you know it's big. We had a train derailment that changed not only our little community, but it changed America because of this experience. This was the incident that led to the creation of FEMA. And it happened in our little town of Waverly. And Toad was involved in it, and he told me the story in his version in detail one day. And I knew then that there needed to be a song. I've always loved those old Appalachian folk songs. You know, at one time, history was largely transferred from one generation to another in the form of songs. And so I love some of those great old songs that came over from the old country. And we've written a few of our own over the years, the West Virginia mining disaster, the wreck of the 97, and some of those. And so I wanted to write one that was reminiscent of that style, but I needed it to be as historically accurate as it could be. And so I talked to some of the survivors. We've still got a few left in our community, and so to the best of my ability to write, this is exactly what happened. It's called The Waverly Train Disaster. One night in February in 1978, a Louisville and Nashville train hauled and freight changed the town forever down in rural Tennessee. When 24 cars jumped the tracks in downtown Waverly, emergency officials converged upon the scene. Two tankers filled with propane were among all those debris. They shut off gas and power in that area of town and tried to keep the tankers cool. They had them watered down. 24th of February, not long after midday, a cleanup crew arrived to get the tankers moved away. The temperature was climbing and the sun rose like a bird. And before the work began, the unthinkable occurred. You could see the smoke and fire from many miles away. The city and her people still wear the scars today. The fires of hell came calling, and the devil got his due. And 16 people lost their lives the day the tanker blew. Dozens more good people were injured from the blast. Businesses and houses were turned to smoke and ash. The fire chief and police chief were among the precious lost. And you can't put a price tag on the carnage or the cost. Today in downtown Waverly, a train car stands alone. The names of all the fallen are written on the stone. Forever a reminder of that February day, when the town was changed forever by the passing of a train. You could see the smoke and fire from many miles away. The city and her people still I was doing some writing last year, and I got to thinking about the term Christian walk. That is a term that us Christians toss around, talking about something about our Christian walk or something that's a part of somebody's Christian walk. It is never your Christian ride. And I thought, well, that makes sense, because when scriptures were written, walking was the primary means of transportation. But I still believe that's the right word, because a walk implies commitment. It implies dedication. If you're on a walk, you are acutely aware of how steep them hills are, and you appreciate the flats and the downhills so much more. If it was a Christian ride, we would miss most of it looking at our phone. That's just the reality. And it got me to thinking about a gentleman that I remember growing up. In fact, he was there many years before I was born. A gentleman in our community named Mr. John L. Mays. Folks called him John L. or Mr. John. Mr. John was a black man who was severely autistic. But Mr. John would get up every morning and walk. And first he would walk up to the hospital and he would visit with the folks in the hospital. And then he would walk down to the nursing home and he would visit with the folks in the nursing home. And he would end up at the funeral home, visiting with the families of the bereaved. And Mr. John went to the funerals of just about everybody that passed away in our community for decades. I mean, this went on for many, many years. When he finally passed away in 2017, of course, there was no building in our community big enough to hold that funeral. Everybody turned out. But when they finished the service and they lined up the cars to head to the cemetery, on the way to the graveyard, they drove his route one more time, which I thought was so precious. But to this day, if you go to the cemetery and you find Mr. John's gravestone, above the dates and his name is a carved picture of him. And at the very top it says, "The Walking Man." Because people who would see him that did not know him would recognize him by his walk. Well, I got to thinking, if I'm going to call myself a Christian, if I'm going to claim to be on this Christian walk, it is my sincere desire that when people see me who don't know me, they can still recognize me as a walking man. And so because of Mr. John and a couple other walking men who kind of changed the world, one in particular, I wrote this song. You could find him every morning on the sidewalks of our town, rain or shine, it didn't matter. Mr. John would make his rounds. He'd be visiting the shut-ins at the county nursing home. He attended every funeral, paid respects to those gone. One foot and then the other, step by step he stayed the course, thinking only about others, listening to the master's voice, moving with purpose, faithful to the plan, and focused on the mighty task at hand. He was a walking man. From Atlanta down to South and the streets of Montgomery, he would walk demanding that all men be treated equally. They gathered like a storm cloud and rained down on D.C., brought change to a nation with a walking preacher's dream. One foot and then the other, step by step he stayed the course, thinking only about others, listening to the master's voice, moving with a purpose, and faithful to the plan, and focused on the mighty task at hand. He was a walking man. Well, there are those who take a side, and some who take a stand, but few will take the steps required to help their fellow man. We're a world in need of more like Mr. John and Dr. King, and the one who took that long walk up a hill called Calvary. youngest member, but I am the most recent inductee in a new little unofficial club in my community. In the mornings, I'm old enough now, I get invited to go right down here to the Waverly Cafe and sit at the liar's table. That's what they call it. It's a handful of mostly retired businessmen, and it's funny to me. These guys get up earlier than they have to and drive to town and pay for coffee for the privilege of sitting at the table and insulting one another. It is the strangest thing I've ever been part of. But I just love these guys. You know, they're just the best, and they're all about a generation older than me. And so I'll prod them along and ask them questions and get them to tell them stories, and it's just so much fun. But I took several of the stories that they had told me, things that they had mentioned, and wanted to kind of put them into a song. And so I wrote this thing. This song is actually kind of more geared directly to the men that are here. But I have no doubt that the ladies that are here will recognize some things in this song as well. When we were boys, the world was our backyard. It was comic books, pen knives, and baseball cards. Hide and seek and tug of war, race to the candy store. We didn't know what girls were for back when we were boys. When we were boys, we'd sleep out in the stars, trade bottles and 4-nickel candy bars, floating on an inner tube, skipping rocks, bending rules, all the things we got into back when we were boys. We didn't realize we had it made, with a capo and the best friend in the shade. Supper on the stove, no bills to pay. I wish I could go back just one more day. When we were boys, we'd slam that old street door. Each day brought new adventures to explore. Stay out till the sun was gone, till street lights started coming on. Mom would holler, y'all come home, back when we were boys. We didn't realize we had it made, with a capo and the best friend in the shade. Supper on the stove, no bills to pay. I wish I could go back just one more day. When we were boys, we dreamed of being grown, but we would have chased that thought if we had known. Mom and Dad still young and strong, everyone was safe at home, and just a blink, it all was gone, back when we were boys. You know, our little town's got about 3,000 people. It's not very big, and you would think that one major disaster would be enough for our community, but no, we're overachievers. And we had another one a few years ago, and you know, I used to think that there was only two ways that you could write a song. You would get an idea, you'd struggle with it, you'd write, you'd set it aside a while, you'd get it back out, you might bring in a co-writer to help you. If you hammer away at it, you can write a good song that way, but you do it out of strictly blood, sweat, and tears. Another way is that every once in a while the song will show up almost intact. And it's fast, you can write it down, it's coming, and you're like, I'm not sure if I'm writing this song or if I'm just writing this song down. You know, it's coming so fast. And for a long time, that's the only two ways that I'd ever written a song. There is at least one more way that's happened to me. I wrote a song one night in my sleep. I didn't know you could do that. But I woke up in the middle of the night and these lyrics were just right there, and I knew if I went back to sleep, I'd forget it. So I grabbed my phone and I recorded the words into my phone and went back to sleep, got up the next day, and I put a tune to the song and ended up recording it. This actually was the #1 song this year. Well, with most every other song I've written, I could kind of give you an idea of where the idea came from, but this one I couldn't because it came about in such a supernatural way. I just assumed God had a purpose for it, and maybe I would know one day, maybe not. But I just wondered why I was the chosen recipient of this song, and hoped that I would get an answer. Well, I got my answer, at least one that satisfies me. On the 21st of August, 2022. August 21st of 2022, my little town of Waverly was just almost washed away by a freak flood. And what happened was, first of all, we had about 19 inches of rain that fell in one morning. That's a fourth of our annual rainfall, fell in just a few hours. So all the rivers and the creeks were empty now. Well, there's a train track that runs parallel with Main Street. It's been there since the Civil War. It sits about 15 feet above town level, and a lot of that water pooled in behind it, and it held it back like a levee until the amount of it and the weight of it was just too great, and it finally pushed through the tracks, and all of this water come rushing into downtown at one time. There's actually video footage still on YouTube of people in town who went from no water in their yard to 6 feet of water in their house in 9 minutes. It was horrific. We had 20 people tragically killed that morning, several of them children. We had 272 homes completely destroyed. And in a small town, that's just a ridiculous number. The force of the water was so great, it was pushing houses off their foundations, and houses were colliding into one another. My mother and my sister both lost their homes that morning. Well, when the waters receded, we got into my mom's house, and I'd never seen anything like that. Mud everywhere, everything turned over. A lot of stuff just gone. The waters had pushed the windows out, and a lot of her material possessions were just washed away forever. Well, as long as I can remember, my mom has kept a Bible on her fireplace that belonged to her grandmother, opened up, and on top of that Bible, she kept her grandmother's eyeglasses. Been there as long as I can recall. Well, of course it was gone, because everything else was gone. But as we were moving things around to see if there was anything salvageable on the far side of the living room, we found the Bible. Somehow it had traveled from the fireplace all the way across the room and was laying open on a table. The eyeglasses were still on it. Now, the back half of her house was gone. Her neighbor's house was gone. The house across the street was gone. Cars and trucks were moving down Main Street like they were toys. But that same force of water gently picked up that Bible and those glasses, carried them across the room, and laid them carefully again on the table. My friend, only a living God can do that. And it could not have been more clear if he had spoken audibly to that morning. Just this little gentle reminder that, you know what, I'm here. In the hardest, in the most difficult, the most catastrophic moments of your life, I have drawn comfort from that ever since. And it was just a little while after that I remembered the song. A song that at that point he had given to me months before. And so I'll always know what the song means for me. And I want to share it with you tonight. It's called Mama's Bible. The services were over, most everyone was gone. Friends were there, condolences for a mama who passed on. Partly tired and partly tribute, I sat down in her chair, and on the table right beside me, I found her Bible there. I picked it up and held it just the way I'd seen her do. Then I ran my thumb across it and I flipped the pages through. That's when I started seeing little pieces of her past. She placed between the pages just to make them always laugh. Not too far into Genesis, I found a faded rose, one she'd saved from her bridal flowers, I suppose. Because right there beside it was a lone black and white of my mama holding roses and my daddy smiling bright. I found an old church program between judges and from the Sunday I got baptized back in my days of youth. And over in Hosea I found a lock of hair, not sure who it belonged to or why she kept it there. I noticed there in Proverbs a page was torn and dry. I knew that it was from the tears that my sweet mama cried. They found the verse about training up a child as he should go, and I knew that she'd been praying because she loved us so. I found a family picture taken on Christmas Day, the last one we had together before Daddy passed away. But she placed his obituary by the 3rd chapter of John, and I knew how much she missed him in the days since he'd been gone. All through the book I found them little treasures tucked away, milestones on the road of life and memories that she stayed. Trinkets of no value except to a mother and a wife whose family and Savior would have set her up for life. I closed it and returned it to that table by the chair, sat for a moment longer and said a silent prayer. I thank God for such a long and the memories that I hold, more precious now than rubies, more valuable than gold. More precious now than rubies, more valuable than gold. Well, thank you again for sharing your evening with me. I appreciate that. I do covet your prayers. I'm on the road a lot. I do about 150 concerts a year. They're everywhere from Florida to Colorado to Rhode Island, and I drive every mile. And I'm a good driver, but some of those folks out there are not. So if you can't pray for me, at least pray for them, if you will. No, I have a website. It's just my name, DarylMosley.com, and you can find my schedule on there. It's up to date. You can keep an idea of where I am. But I tell you, I just thanks so much for allowing me to be here tonight and sharing your night with me. And we got the holidays coming up, so let me be the first to wish you a happy Thanksgiving. And we just have so much to be thankful for. This old pickup truck sure ain't much to look at. The rust and the miles are showing through. But every day it gets me where I'm going. It runs just like if it were brand new. This house of mine ain't much more than a cottage. Always things in need of repair. But inside are the ones I love so dearly, who make me feel like I'm a millionaire. And I'm thankful I've been so richly blessed, for more than I deserve, when so many have much less. Thankful for the things we sometimes miss, like help, time, friendship, love, and happiness. And when I count my blessings, I lose track. There's no way I could ever pay it back, but I'm thankful. Are you thankful this evening? I try so hard not to take for granted the very things that I treasure most, and lose sight of the blessings I've been given, and all the gifts that I have been bestowed. Because there are so many with so little, they look at me and think I've got it made. I'm covered up with all that really matters. I've got my faith, quietly I pray. I am thankful I've been so richly blessed, more than I deserve, when so many have much less. Thankful for the things we sometimes miss, like health, time, and friendship.